Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Becca, who's the author of the Clarity Journal. Becca, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, I literally forget how we got connected, but I'm certain that it was your podcast booking agency or PR agency that connected us, because I get so many of those. But it's curious and interesting that you're the author of the Clarity Journal, because that word clarity resonates with me so much, because my latest book on Amazon is called Brevity plus Clarity equals Authority. And I know that whatever clarity we're talking about, whether it's talking to our kids or business prospects or communicating your business objectives, clarity is so important. And so I'm excited to talk to you about your Clarity Journal. So welcome, and give us a little bit of background on your entrepreneurial journey and then what led you to put together the Clarity Journal.
Yeah, so I've been a career coach for a very long time, and it was really funny. I was in my own crossroads, trying to figure out what I was going to do next for my own business. And in doing that, I was going back and forth with a friend of mine, and she was basically finally fed up and paused me, and she's like, "Becca, you do this for other people all the time. What would you tell yourself?" And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I do help people find clarity all the time. And so after that call, I hung up and I wrote down 30 prompts that I use with my clients to help them gain more clarity. And I was realizing that it was really helpful. And just having those questions, not even necessarily needing the time one-on-one with a coach, but just having the questions themselves in front of me helped me gain so much clarity so quickly. And so I decided to go ahead and write this book so that way I could help other people. Some people aren't at the time or space where hiring a coach is the right thing to do right now. Sometimes people feel a little more comfortable hiring a coach once they find a little bit more clarity. But it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't hire the coach, then you don't have the clarity, and then you don't hire the coach.
Well, it's really interesting you say it that way, because you watch Shark Tank. I think I've seen every single episode 4 times, and you hear that kind of comment over and over, which is, hey, I was having this problem of whatever, and I went looking for the solution. It didn't exist, so I made it. I created it. whatever. Well, in your case, your friend was like, wow, you do all this kind of stuff, and and you go, okay, sure, let's now pull out what I normally talk to my clients about. Well, here's these 30 prompts, and oh, lo and behold, well, now let's make it into a book or a roadmap or a guide, and now, wow, it was always there. And I wonder if part of what you work with your clients about, maybe sometimes people say to you, wow, the clarity that I have is amazing, but you know what? Nothing was earth-shatteringly new. It was already there. You just showed me.
Right. Well, I think it's really funny with my clients. I find that everyone sends me before they hire me, they send me this email giving me the whole laundry list of what's going on with their life, and they always spend about 2 paragraphs saying, "I just don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know." And when I first started coaching, I kind of bought into that. But as I became more seasoned, I started really realizing that if I dig in fairly deep, I find out that they really have 2 to 3 options they're deciding about, and they don't even really realize it because they are so stuck on that part that's telling themselves they don't know, that they don't even see that they actually do know 3 potential solutions. They just can't decide.
I've heard people in sales say, well, here's how to overcome that objection. Well, I don't know. And they will say, well, if you did know, what would you say? And right. Maybe if that's one of the things that you even work with your clients on, where it's like, well, if you did know, it's now you kind of get into this future pacing, like, well, let's see here. If I did know, well, then I would, and like a realtor will do with this house, oh, well, if you lived here, what do you think you'd put in this corner or this part of the living room? And it kind of gets people thinking still, like I haven't made a decision and I haven't, solved the world's problems, but, well, if I was clear about this issue, it would have to be this. And so I think that's a really interesting aha that you have with your clients there.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I think it's human nature to kind of get stuck in the question itself instead of trying to find the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you know what, when you think about it, you need to know the why of something before the how. So if you talk about the whys, that becomes like the pull and it draws you towards something. And then sometimes the how kind of comes to light.
Exactly.
Whereas if you start to think about how, maybe you get frustrated. You're like, I don't know. And now it's not working. And you need to maybe take that 2 steps back. So that's a really interesting mindset shift, isn't it?
It really is. And then once you start focusing on what you actually want, that how kind of starts falling into place. A lot of times, if you're really crystal clear about what you want, then the mentors fall into place. Then the information, like what you're actually even Googling, falls into place. Because if you're all over the place with what it is that you're searching for, you just end up getting this muddied answer that you can't sift through. Because let's face it, when someone's asking for clarity, when someone's feeling stuck and can't decide what's next, they really are usually stuck because they want to do something new that they don't have as much experience in. And so what they really need is help kind of sifting through all of the options in a more empowered way.
What you just said made me think about something that I heard years and years and years ago. I'm sure you've heard it too, but I think it was attributed to Tony Robbins, who probably stole it from Jim Rohn, who probably stole it from someone else. But when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like, I don't feel like woo-woo if I say this, poof, it's going to happen. But you know what? Sorry. Neuroscientists will tell us that thoughts lead to things. Maybe they're not things, tangible, but when you start thinking about something and talking to people about it, all of a sudden now you're like, okay, well, maybe I could do that. And maybe let me take that next step and the next step. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just recognized that someone was saying this, or I was online and I noticed that. And I guarantee you this, if they were always there, there's a part in our brain. Have you ever heard of the reticular activator?
Yes.
So I did this with a group of people. I teach Council Career Sunday School class at our church, and we did this exercise once, and I'm like, okay, let's test this. Reticular activator. This week, watch for how many red SUVs you see. Get a piece of paper and put little tick marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, cross it through for 5. And the next week, it was dozens and dozens and dozens. It was like red SUV, red or Jeep or whatever that it was. And they were always there. You just weren't attuned to that. So I think, to your point, when you start watching for, the solution, not the problem, not what's going wrong, but, why is the solution important? And what is some potential solutions? Maybe some of the actual actions that need to be taken that are already around us, maybe they become, apparent a little bit easier.
Exactly. I run into that with clients all the time. As soon as they start really knowing what it is they want to go for, just opportunities end up aligning so much more quickly. But I always wonder, were those opportunities there and they just didn't see them? And I kind of believe at this point that either the opportunity was there and they didn't see it, or they were too stuck. So the person that would be presenting the opportunity just didn't feel right about it. I run into that with a lot of times with my unemployed clients. I spend a lot of time helping them work on their own energy, because when you're unemployed, it's just really hard to keep yourself upbeat. But if you're constantly complaining to everyone that you're unemployed, then the opportunities don't present themselves, because all you're doing is complaining, and it makes people worried about putting you forth for a job in the first place.
Yeah. And you hear this so many times where it's like, when you start thinking, it starts in your thinking. When you start thinking the right way, those good things happen. If you wake up and go, what a bad day this is going to be. Well, the coffee's going to be cold, or you're going to stub your toe. You're going to find something bad. And I actually have an exercise that I do every single day. I have I use this app on my phone, but mainly I use it on my computer called Todoist. And it's like, here's my to-do items, and I can schedule them out and recur and all these things. But every single day, one thing pops up, and it's called One Good Thing. And I put in the comments section at the end of the day, here's the date. And I scoot it all the way down to the bottom of the day. So when I get to the bottom of my to-do list, the last thing that I do is, what's one good thing that happened today? And it doesn't need to be monumental. It's just and you find yourself watching for what's one thing that happened good. It doesn't need to be like, oh, I changed the world, but it could be like, what, I was whatever that it is. So I feel like that mindset really goes leagues toward creating the clarity that you are helping your clients achieve, right?
Right. I love that exercise. I haven't heard that one before, and that is really such a great way to end the workday. Yep.
Well, I heard it years ago as 3 good things, and I'm like, you know what? I like simplicity, and I also like to set myself up for success, not like, oh, I'm racking my brain for 3 things. But what's one? What's one good thing? Come on, one. Now, if I thought of 3, I could always write it in, type it in, but what's one good thing? What's one? And I think that becomes something that creates momentum. So your 30, touch points or 30 aspects that you work with your clients on, I'm sure each one of those are not 9 hours long that is going to be grueling and they're going to give up when they get to the 3rd one. It's like, okay, this one leads to the next, and you start getting that momentum because this was easy to accomplish, and I saw a little bit of progress. So talk a little bit about that process.
So the process really is about being honest with yourself, and I find that when we are stuck in our own head, we have a hard time looking at a problem in a different way. So the point of the journal prompts really is just to help you shift your frame of mind a little bit so you can get out of how you've been looking at it and kind of look at any problem in a new light, to look for new solutions. So one of my favorite journal prompts in the Clarity Journal is, who do you envy and what does that tell you about yourself? And I love that one because so often we have people that we look up to, but we're also slightly jealous of. And, we're not jealous of everyone with success. We're not jealous of Beyonce necessarily. We're not jealous of Oprah. We're jealous of people usually much more specifically in line with what you want for your own life. And so I find it really helpful to get out of your own head and look at what someone else is doing. What do you envy about that person? How can you then tie that into what you want for your life, and how can you emulate it?
The phrase "make it your own" comes to mind.
Exactly.
Right,
because you're going to end up making it your own.
Yeah. Like, I don't care about Oprah and her level of success, but if something about her persona attracts me, then what is it? Well, I kind of like this, and it would be nice if. And then now, how do you make it your own? Well, I don't need to have her level of success, but boy, if I could just, and I think that becomes a really neat exercise.
Yeah. Well, and also it gives you, if you're doing it for 2 or 3 people, it also ends up being additive. You're not just emulating one person. You're taking the breadth of experience and kind of exactly creating your own path.
Well, if you did that with 3 people, let's say, you would find a recurring thread. Like, well, I like this about that person. Okay, so it's not really I want to be Oprah or be Beyonce, but I like the fact that whatever this is. And then you can evaluate, is that a good thing? Like, am I too materialistic? And I was talking to someone literally about 20 minutes ago, where they were talking about these influencers that we see online and social media that are just posers. They go rent a Lamborghini, take pictures in front of it to look more important, but it's like you can almost see the rental agreement in the advisor. It's like, that's not, how could you resonate with that? So you need to figure out what you like about those people. What's that recurring thread? And then, is that a viable feeling, or is it something that would be able to be made your own, in a kind of like a, I don't know, downplay sounds like a bad thing, but how do you take the good elements of that recurring thread and kind of make it your own? That's a really neat exercise.
Yeah, I find it really helpful to kind of drill down to what the dream is, and I don't know. I don't personally run into too many people where the dream is just to be an influencer.
Yeah.
The dream is to get their message out in some way, and that influencer is able to get their message out in the way that resonates with the person watching. And so it's not so much about like, I want a lot of influence. It's, I want to like be that person, like in a broader sense, like have that message, or make that message my own and be able to write books about it, or I want to have a YouTube channel where I'm really discussing it. I don't know all that many influencers that are really successful just being materialistic. Yeah. Possibly that's just because those are not the type of people I follow. Yep. I am sure now that I think about it, there are lots of people that is their driving force, but I don't think that people whose driving force is to be materialistic as opposed to being purposeful are probably that interested in the Clarity Journal in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I love on your website where you've got pages that are titled Get Unstuck and Find Momentum. So, it's kind of like ready, aim, fire. So many people start with fire, but you got to aim first. And then even before that, you got to get ready. So before you find that momentum, you got to get unstuck. And before you get unstuck, guess what? You got to get clear, and kind of maybe that's what is are intended to be articulated with that. I'm just staring at 2 pages, but it's like you need the clarity to see why you're stuck, to then get unstuck so that you can find momentum.
Right. Well, because we're really smart when you really don't have the clarity and you're trying to push through and write a book without clarity, or write do anything that's supposed to be furthering your goals, but you're not actually certain about what your goals are. Your brain knows that this is very likely going to be wasted time, wasted effort, and it's going to be really hard to get yourself really moving and get that momentum that you want without the base of having the genuine clarity behind it.
100%. So let's talk a little bit more about the Clarity Journal. It's available on Amazon, but you talk about over 100 thought-provoking writing prompts and quotes. Love me some quotes, so that's good. Unique insights designed to help you get out of your own way, and a path forward that incorporates your strengths, dreams, and goals. What's one extra takeaway that someone will get from reading your book? And maybe that's based on what some people have already told you.
I think that the big part of it is being more comfortable articulating your own strengths. In my experience, people really minimize what their strengths are. They don't even see them because they come easy. And so I'll be talking to someone and they'll say, oh, I want to do this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, well, that's great because that lines up with this strength I see and this strength I see, and you should think about doing it in this direction. And they're like, that's not a strength. And I'm like, does it come easily to you? And they'll always be like, yes, but doesn't it come easy to everybody? And the answer to that question is emphatically no.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, when the kind of the classic, what's my purpose, or why, what is, my definite major goal, that kind of thing. It's like, well, what do you do that you just lose time with and just absolutely love and you're just so excellent about, and people rave that, well, you're so good at, and you kind of scratch your head going, well, shoot, that's just the easiest thing in the world. Well, for many people, it is not. Whatever that might be. And I think that getting out of your own way might be realizing what that actually is. And I don't care what how trivial that topic is. If you're thinking about, like even a business idea, man, what is it that you do that is so simple and so easy that you could build a little mini course around that? And I know for me, I've paid $50 or $60 or $70 on, professional use of Evernote. Well, Evernote's a free tool, and you can figure it out, and there's YouTube videos, but why did I pay someone? Because they had a cool-looking course, and they had, some knowledge. So I think that, you might feel like that imposter syndrome of, well, I'm not really an expert in, or I don't really know. Well, you really are compared to other people.
Right. It's flipping the switch. We act like the things that we work hardest on are the things that we should be presenting to the world, the things that are of value because they're hard. Whereas the thing that's the most of value to the world is the thing that comes easy to you that you can help other people do easier.
Yep. Because there will be work in bringing that to the world, and you want that work to not feel like work, because like Henry Ford said, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. So with that, let's wrap up with this. Becca, thank you for coming on. How can people learn more about what you do, how you work with your clients, and even learn more about your Clarity Journal?
Well, the Clarity Journal is on Amazon and easy to find. And then you can find me at beccaribbing.com as well as Becca Ribbing at Twitter and Instagram.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.